You want these meatballs to feel not really wet by the time you work in enough breadcrumbs, but not really dry and hard either. You can kind of see the consistency here. I'm going to go wash my hands again. Be right back. So right now, with these different shortages and things, one of the things that people used to do way back is they would save their bacon grease, hamburger grease, anything like that in a jar or tin can in the fridge, and then use that where they could on cooking to save on butter, margarine, oil, that kind of stuff. And we are starting to see these shortages in the store. So what you'll be seeing in a minute is my jar with hamburger grease and bacon grease in it that I've been storing in the fridge. This is a cast iron pan. I just turned it on medium. This is my little jar with my grease stored in it. This is really, really lean hamburger that I'm using. If you have like 75% or something like that, you don't need any grease in the pan, but where I'm using a lean hamburger, I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of the saved grease here into the pan. I like to use a wooden spoon for most things, and that's what I'll use here. I'm going to let that pan heat up for just a couple of minutes and get that grease spread around here. And then I'll start balling up meatballs. Now, I didn't say this at the beginning, but make sure you're washing your hands when you open the package of hamburger, you know, after you then afterwards, and before you put your hands in the meat, and afterwards. Just keep your hands washed. I see these videos where people are touching raw meat and then touching their salt and pepper and stuff like that. They say, well, I'm going to wash that up after. Well, the thing is, you can't wash that up after, because those labels are paper and stuff like that, and it's all soaked into those labels, and you're going to make yourself sick. Just take a few minutes and just keep washing your hands as you go. Be safe. All right, so I'm going to start balling these meatballs up, and we're just going to pan fry these. You can make them however big, however small you want. Now, my son and I, we like barbecue meatballs, so I'll be making a barbecue sauce for some of these. My husband does not, so I'll be making a little bit of gravy for some of his. I'm just going to make some rice tonight. I have some leftover mashed potatoes in the fridge, so people can either have the rice or they can warm up the potatoes and some sort of a vegetable. I don't know what I'm making for a vegetable yet. Maybe beets, and I have some leftover corn. My son doesn't like beets, but we could do beets, and then he could warm up the corn and get that used. Right now, once again, with these shortages, you don't want to be wasting anything. Really think things through. If you have 1 serving of vegetable and somebody likes that, it's not enough for everybody. Cook a vegetable that night that you know, maybe somebody doesn't like, and they can eat that serving, or whatever you need to do. Just don't be wasting any food, because you're going to need it. And it's not really fair to drag all this food home and then have, you know, be wasting it when other people can't get what they need. Try to be considerate when you're shopping in the stores right now. You know, if you go and there's a lot of toilet paper and you know people are having a hard time, don't get the biggest pack if you've got a good stock at home. Get a couple rolls or a 4-pack or something. Just love your neighbor as yourself and be considerate. And trust God he's going to meet your needs, but don't be taking so much that there's nothing left for anybody else. And especially, don't be taking stuff, food and stuff like that, and taking it home and wasting it. Okay, now, these meatballs, where they're going to be going into a sauce. I'm not going to worry about getting these browned until they're done all the way in the center because they're just going to get dry. What I'll be doing here is I'll just be browning these on the outside, and you'll see in a little bit. Then they'll go right into a hot sauce, and the cover will go on, and they'll simmer for a little bit. And that will finish cooking them, but it will keep them, you know, from getting overdone, and it'll also give them good flavor as they simmer. You could put these in the oven too if you're strapped for time. They get a little drier. I'm not a real big fan of it, but like if I was doing a whole bunch of meatballs, like more than a pound, let's say like 3 pounds, then I would go ahead and just ball them up, put them in a grease pan, put them in the oven on 350, and they'll just brown. You don't really even have to turn them or anything. Just watch them close. Wash your hands again. Now I make these same meatballs, the same spices in the hamburger here, regardless of what I'm using them for. If I'm using them for spaghetti or Swedish meatballs or whatever I got going, I just make the same meatballs. And sometimes too, I'll make a bunch of these and I'll freeze them. And that's real handy to have on hand for nights that you're busy, and just dump them out into a jar of pre-made sauce and let them simmer a little bit and put them over pasta or whatever. Or you could put them on a sub or like a meatball grinder. You know, hopefully I won't have to turn the hood fan on here, because if I do, it'll get noisy. So I'll go as long as I can without doing that. I'm going to stop the video and then I'll come back when these are brown on one side and show you what it's like when I'm flipping them. Okay, I'm just ready to start flipping these. I'm just going to take my wooden spoon and just very lightly turn them over. Now, if you don't have any bacon grease or hamburger grease saved, and you're using this lean hamburger like this, just use, you know, a tablespoon of oil or Crisco or whatever you've got. Now, once I get these all flipped, I'll let them cook like that on that side. And then I also cook them on their 2 edges. And I'm not going to make you watch me do all of that. I'll just show you what I do with one on its edge. I'll just turn it like that, you know, and cook it on its edge. And then when that edge is done, I'll turn it to the other edge and cook it. And get them all about this brown on both sides, and then 2 edges. Usually the other 2 edges, you can see the hamburger starting to get real done. Okay, so I did decide to show you what I meant about the edge thing. Let me show you this one right here. See, this edge is cooked all on its own. And this edge is cooked on its own, but this is still showing pink and this is still showing pink. I just turn it up like that. Just brown it just a couple minutes. Just turn them right up on their side. Let them brown on that edge, whatever edge is still showing pink. just work them lightly because you don't want to bust them open. If you got a hot pan with a little bit of grease, they're not going to stick. Cast iron's the only way to go for these, in my opinion. I mean, the cast iron just browns everything so nice. Of course, I'm an old-fashioned cook anyway, so I like my cast iron pan. It sets on my stove all the time. As soon as I get it washed, I just oil it, dry it on the stove, oil it, and let it sit there till the next meal, because I'm pretty much going to use it every meal. There's no sense of struggling with the heavy thing to get it down in the cabinet and then try to pull it back out. Okay, and then there's just this other edge here. I'll flip them one last time and then they'll be ready, other than putting them into the sauce. Okay, that's what they look like when they're ready to go into the sauce. This is how I make the barbecue sauce. I use a bottle of any barbecue sauce of your choice. Of course, I can't get it open now that I'm on camera. I'll shut this off so you can hear me better. So I'm just going to pour this right in. Okay, now I'm going to put about a half a bottle of water in here and shake it up. Okay, next is about a half a cup of ketchup. Oh, I got the wrong ketchup. This one hasn't been opened. Just a minute. Okay, and then about a tablespoon of vinegar. Okay, and then about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Okay, then a little bit of salt. Don't need much because of that barbecue sauce. And then about a tablespoon of minced onion. And then 2 tablespoons of mustard. Now, if you don't have all this stuff, you can just use the barbecue sauce and grape jelly mixed together. That's the old way of doing it. Okay, and now about half a cup of, 1 cup, of brown sugar. I'm just going to put in what I have here. I'm not going to measure. It doesn't matter. That barbecue sauce is sweet to begin with. I'm not much on measuring. Just kind of eye it. Okay, now I'm just going to put that on medium heat and get that all worked in together and incorporated, and let that come to a boil. When it comes to a boil, I'm going to put my meatballs in there, and I'm going to cover them, and I'm going to turn that temperature down to 2, and I'm going to just let them simmer while I'm making my rice and vegetable. Make sure you break that brown sugar up. You don't want that in there all chunky. And this will thicken as it cooks up. Okay, I'll be back when it's boiling. Okay, so this is simmering, and I'm just going to add some of my meatballs. Remember, I'm saving some out to put into a gravy sauce. Okay, I'm just going to stir them. Put my cover on, turn my temperature down. Okay, now normally I would make my sauce before my meatballs, and then I could add my meatballs in as soon as they were done, and it would be faster. But today I actually had some place that I needed to be, and I didn't know if I was going to have enough time to get it all done, so I hurried and tried to start with the meatballs because that took the most time, figuring that way, you know, when I was able to make the sauce, at least the meatballs would be done. So just, you know, you can break your routine a little bit for whatever works for you on what day. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and there's my meatballs. They look really good. And I'm gonna talk about making rice here now. If you're making regular cooked rice, not minute rice, but regular rice, okay, then you always want double the water of whatever you have for rice. So let me see what I've got here. Okay, there's a cup of rice. And what I'm going to do is, I like this kosher salt from the Dollar Tree, but whatever you have for salt, it's going to give it a little sprinkle of salt. So I've got 1 cup of rice. I'm going to need 2 cups of water. Now, this is so simple. The key to making good rice is do not peek at it once we get the cover on. What we're going to do is we're going to bring this rice to a boil. When it boils, we're going to stir it 1 time, put the cover on. On a gas stove, you want to turn it down to low. On an electric stove, turn it down to 2. Set your timer 20 minutes. Do not peek at it. Do not peek at it. Do not lift that lid for any reason. If you lift that lid, you are going to be making glue, not rice. Trust me. It's so hard for people to leave it alone, and that's why they don't make good rice. Now, you can use, you know, a glass cover so you can at least see it if you're really nosy like that. I normally don't, but I did for this video just to show you. Okay, while we're waiting for that to boil, I have some homemade gravy going over here that I just started. And I'll show you in another video how to make this homemade gravy. All I'm going to do now is add those meatballs for my husband because he doesn't like the barbecue ones. And I'll just add these meatballs right in there and just let them simmer while that rice is cooking. And I'll put a cover on that. Okay, just gonna put the cover on that, let those simmer, and back over to the rice. Here we go. You see the rice go? It's starting to try to boil. It has not completely boiled yet. Okay, there it goes. Good boil. You want a good full boil, not just when it starts to simmer a little bit, but a good full boil. Okay, here we go. Stir it once. Remember what I said. Stir it one time. Put the cover on. Now, if you're on a gas stove, you want low. If you're on an electric stove, you want 2. Now, set the timer for 20 minutes. Do not touch it again. Do not touch it. Trust me on this. All right, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I like the canned beets, and I usually use either Green Giant or the Libby's. They're both real good, and I'll just be warming these up. Okay, I just wanted to pop in for a second and just show you an update on these few meatballs that I put in with my homemade gravy. As you can see, those are looking really, really good too. Okay, I just thought you might want to see what those were looking like. Okay, this is what the plate looks like with the meatballs and gravy over the rice. The rice turned out perfect, just like I said that it would if you do it that way. Okay, I'll be back with a shot of the plate with the barbecue meatballs. Okay, so that's what my plate looks like. I put a little soy sauce on my rice and the barbecue meatballs, and it'll be delicious. Thanks for watching. Like and